rates noted by CBO that raise questions about the stimulus impact of the bill. Currently, there are estimates on the job creation potential of the bill that show only about 10% of the funds creating jobs. If those estimates are accurate, the question arises as to where the other funds are going. Some analysis show that the lion's share of the monies in this bill are destined for expansion of an assortment of government programs that have nothing to do with economic stimulus. Moreover, these programs are ones that are funded each year through the normal appropriations process and will be funded again in 2010. That tells me that we're using this bill to expand the funding scope of certain programs in order to make room for additional spending in the 2010 cycle. We're calling these extra spending emergency, spending, so we'll not have to find a way to pay for it. Whether we call it emergency or something else, the deficit effect is still the same, and our children will pay for it. Many of these programs already have large unexpended balances. For example, there's $5 billion for public housing, yet we have close to $7 billion in unexpended public housing balances. Many of the proponents of this bill talk of the need to rebuild the nation's highway and bridge infrastructure and speak of the job creation potential of these activities. Yet the highway portion of this bill contains less than 4% of the total funding. Now, I'm very supportive of legitimate stimulus that results in net economic activity and job creation. And for that reason, I offered an amendment in the full committee designed to ensure that all stimulus funds would produce net economic activity and not supplant existing funds. I also co-sponsored an amendment with Mr. Frelinghuysen that would have moved some $60 billion to transportation, flood control, and environmental restoration
Gentleman from
projects.
Wisconsin.
Ladies and gentlemen, our children and grandchildren are going to pay for this debt.
I yield myself 15 seconds.
Gentleman from Wisconsin, recognized 15 seconds.
My friend from Iowa says that this bill is too big. I'll make a deal with him. I'll be happy to give him a smaller bill if he will show me a smaller problem.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from California.
Speaking of smaller problems, I might mention I hope that the chairman put that Jefferson Memorial problem in the 09 bill, which is yet to be passed, or through the whole process.
Any time?
I'd be glad to yield the gentlewoman from Missouri 2 minutes.
Gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, let me say how pleased I am to be the ranking member of the Financial Services and General Government Subcommittee for the 111th Congress, and look forward to working cooperatively with Chairman Serrano. Regarding the financial services section of the recovery bill we're debating today, I am disappointed that neither I nor the minority's committee staff were given an opportunity to consult with the majority members or staff before the bill was produced and unveiled on the Internet. 1% sounds like a small amount, but in this bill, even 1/10 of 1% is not trivial. Here's an example. This bill includes $7.7 billion for the GSA to build and renovate new federal buildings and ports of entry. It's nearly 1% of the bill. However, in fiscal year 2008, GSA received a total appropriation of only $1.4 billion for construction and renovations. Now, most of us know from personal experience that GSA construction projects in our districts are hardly ever completed on time and never under budget. At its highest levels, this is an agency that needs a wake-up call and a good scrubbing behind the ears. What it does not need is 5.5 years' worth of annual budget appropriations to spend in 120 days, a task it most certainly cannot accomplish with any semblance of efficiency. GSA lacks the contracting, program management, and building engineering expertise to go from $1.4 billion in appropriations to $7.7 billion in just 1 year. Giving GSA the keys to nearly 1% of the stimulus package will result in gross mismanagement and future funding liabilities. Additionally, according to lists provided by GSA, one of the projects they list that can be awarded within 120 days, 36% or $2 billion are in Washington, D.C. Now, in a bill for the economic health of our entire nation, Washington is sure getting the lion's share. I'm also concerned with $600 million in the bill for the purchase of vehicles for federal agencies. The bill states that these are to be primarily alternative fuel and plug-in hybrid vehicles, technologies I greatly support. However, there is currently no U.S. production for plug-in vehicles, and they won't be here until after the deadline in this bill has passed.
Yield the gentlelady 30 additional seconds.
Gentlewoman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
The lack of fueling stations for these vehicles could produce a fleet of cars and trucks in this country that could create new obstacles for federal agencies. Even David Brooks of the New York Times noted that concerns such as this one were, quote, cast aside with bland reassurances in our committee markup of this bill. Mr. Speaker, this is neither what we should be doing with the taxpayers' money nor how we should be doing it. I yield back.
The gentleman from Idaho is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the ranking member for the time. Everyone on this floor agrees that something needs to be done in terms of stimulating this economy. We all know that we're in difficult times. I also agree with Speaker Pelosi that any stimulus plan needs to be timely, temporary, and targeted. It is timely. We need to do something. We know we need to do it quickly. Targeted. This would be targeted if your weapon was a scattergun, because everything but the kitchen sink has been thrown into this appropriation bill. Temporary. It would take a stretch of the imagination to believe that this was temporary. Today, President Obama came and spoke with us. He said that he didn't want programs started that had what he called a long tail, and that meant that it contributed to the long-term deficit of this country and that they were going to have to cut in later years. I will tell you that there is nothing as eternal on this earth as a temporary government program. We all know that. I give you one example, school construction. We're going to start a school construction program. Never been authorized before, but we're going to start one here. Does anybody really believe that we will then end it after 3 or 4 or 5 years whenever this slowdown in our economy turns around? It will be going on forever. We all know that. We have a number of programs that have never been debated. I can't remember the exact number, something like 32 new authorizations that have never been debated in committee. They may be appropriate, I don't know. But we've never debated them to see if they should be authorized and whether they can compete against other programs for the limited amount of money, well, the unlimited amount of money we apparently have in this bill. In other cases, the spend out is 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road. And I would ask you, why are we appropriating money for a program that will spend out money in 4 or 5 years down the road when we all hope that this economy has turned around, but yet we are appropriating money now for that spend out? It just doesn't make sense. Why don't we go through the regular appropriation process to do that?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Chairman, with this measure, the new administration seems bound and determined to continue the failed policy of the past administration. It proves what I like to call McClintock's second law of political physics, which is the more we spend on our mistakes, the less willing we are to admit them. This policy has failed every time and every place it's been tried for a simple reason. Government cannot inject a single dollar into the economy that it has not first taken out of the same economy. If I take a dollar from Peter and give it to Paul, it's true that Paul now has an extra dollar to spend. And when he spends it, that dollar is going to ripple through the economy. The gentleman is correct. But the gentleman forgets that Peter now has one less dollar to spend in that same economy. In short, it nets to zero. In fact, it nets to less than zero because we are shifting enormous resources away from investments that would be based on economic calculations in favor of investments that are being made on political ones.
The gentleman from New York.